This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Seventeen dead dolphins wash up on Mauritius beach near oil spill site. Ethiopia to launch the second satellite before the end of the year to provide an Earth observation services. And 2 dead as gunfire erupts during protests over shooting of a black man in Kenosha. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. With the details on those stories coming up in just a moment. But first, here's Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. Nigeria's Akinwumi Adesina is poised for a second term as the president of the African Development Bank as delegates meet virtually for the first time in the bank's history. And the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization is touring historic sites in Egypt. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And let's begin in Mauritius, where at least 17 dead dolphins have been found on the seashore. The cause of their deaths is not yet known. Their death comes more than a month after the vessel MV Wakasho ran aground off the coast of Mauritius and began spilling oil into the Indian Ocean. The Japanese-owned ship ran aground at Point du Séné, a known sanctuary for wildlife. A post-mortem is being carried out to establish the cause of the death for the dolphins. Let's cross over to CGTN's Liu Feifei. She's in Port Louis and joins us with the latest on that. Feifei, what is the latest on the 17 dead dolphins found on the seashore in Mauritius?
Yes, indeed. This is a rapidly evolving situation here with 17 dolphins confirmed earlier, but as of now, it's been 18 dead dolphins confirmed. Basically, this morning, early Wednesday morning, some residents in the area where the oil spill took place, a bit further up north from where the oil spill took place, they woke up to find a dead dolphin on the coast. And subsequently, every few hours, more dolphins were reported dead along that stretch of the coastal area. And so this is the news that has been evolving and coming out. As of right now, 18 confirmed dead dolphins, but according to some local residents, there might be many more.
Well, Feifei, of course, this is coming shortly after that oil spill in Mauritius. What are you hearing to be the cause of the death?
There are conflicting attributions of the cause. The government, the Ministry of Fisheries, has just finished a press conference, and they have said that based on a visual exam of the dolphins, that there is no linkage to the oil spill. This is very different from what local environmentalists are saying. They're saying that this is clearly related to the oil spill and possibly to the towing and subsequent scuttling, that is the planned sinking of the bow section of the Wakasho. And of course, Greenpeace Africa has called for the government to further investigate. In fact, we understand that a number of the dolphins have been taken to the Mauritius Oceanographic Institute up in Albion, that's on the northwest coast of Mauritius, for autopsies.
So Feifei, how are locals reacting to the sight of the dead dolphins? Because as you mentioned, the toll now is 18 dolphins dead, and perhaps the numbers could be higher. How are the locals there reacting?
I have to say, the mood on the ground is just, they're absolutely heartbroken and absolutely devastated. The dolphins are quite emblematic of this Indian island nation. You can see them from the coast swimming, and there are daily dolphin trips where people go and swim with the dolphin. They are a part of the life and the ocean that makes up Mauritius, and people are sad. And I guess it just really brings to life a lot of the concerns that people have been having about the impact of the oil spill.
Well, Feifei, just very briefly, though, I mean, it must be a very heartbreaking sight to witness. And what is the government's reaction, though, to this incident?
The government has sent Coast Guards. As far the National Coast Guard, I believe, is out there. We don't have this as verified information, but we believe that they are out there trying to get some of the dolphins out of the lagoons. So where the ship sank, it sank onto the coral reefs, and between the reef and where people live, there's the lagoon, and this is where the dolphins have been washing up on shore. So we believe the Coast Guard is out there trying to get them out into the sea. That is one thing. The other thing, I believe the investigation and into the actual cause of death is ongoing.
All right, Liu Feifei joining us there from Port Louis in Mauritius. Now, the World Health Organization has declared Africa polio-free. This achievement comes after decades of mass immunization and education campaigns. Here's CGTN's Jen Keo with that report.
The month of August is a historic month for the African continent. After 4 years of no single case of wild polio, the World Health Organization has declared Africa polio-free.
My message is to tell families that the eradication of polio does not mean that we stop immunizing children.
Poliovirus now joins smallpox on the list of viruses that have been wiped out in Africa. WHO says poliomyelitis eradication efforts have prevented up to 1.8 million children from crippling lifelong paralysis and saved approximately 180,000 lives since 1996.
We really have to work hand in hand with the population so that these vaccination activities can continue.
Poliovirus is spread in the feces of an infected person and is picked up through contaminated food or water. The acutely infectious and contagious virus attacks the spinal cord and causes irreversible paralysis in children. Vaccinating people breaks the cycle of transmission and eventually eradicates the virus. The last case of polio in Africa was detected in 2016 in Nigeria. Vaccination in the West African country has been violently opposed by jihadists who claim it's a plot to sterilize Muslims. The WHO, however, says it will ensure that Africa is shielded from any polio cases by continuing with its vaccination campaigns. Jane Keo, CGTN.
Ethiopia says preparations are being finalized to launch its second satellite before the end of the year. The project is supported by China, which also helped to launch Ethiopia's first satellite. Here is CGTN's Girum Chala with more.
Ethiopia's newest satellite is a 6U nano satellite with a high resolution. The second satellite will be used for Earth observation and data collection. It will operate alongside the country's first satellite, ETRSS-1.
The main purpose of our nanosatellite is, since ETRSS-1 will not cover everything from all the territories of Ethiopia, then the new satellite will support and cover those areas that will not be covered by the ETRSS-1. And the second one is for the disaster prediction, for agriculture and for environmental and other purposes.
Those areas that will not be covered by the ETRSS-1.
Ethiopia's two satellites were developed as joint efforts between Chinese and Ethiopian engineers. Authorities here say China played a key role in helping Ethiopia achieve its space science ambitions.
The collaboration between the China and the Ethiopian governments in space is very, very strong always. And we are open enough to collaborate to many countries, particularly in China, because space needs a wide range of collaborations and teamwork and strong network. Then China has a long-time experience in space industry, space technology, and then really that changes, transforms the country using this space technology. This is another step that makes strengthening the collaboration between China and Ethiopia. Space technology.
Ethiopia is now expected to launch its second satellite into orbit before the end of 2020 from a facility in China. China has already provided technical and financial support for both ETRSS-1 and the second nano-satellite of the country. And now Beijing will help launch the nano-satellite into low Earth orbit, most probably in October. Grumchara CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And still in Kenya, farmers in Turkana County are adopting climate-smart techniques. There's little rainfall in this semi-arid region, and water harvesting is one of the ways to adapt to the effect of climate change. Daniel Arap Moy visited some of the farms.
Joseph Mulongo has been grappling with the realities of climate change. His farm is just outside Lodwar in Kenya's Turkana County. It's dry here most of the year. Joseph used to struggle with poor harvest or no harvest at all. But he's embraced agriculture techniques that maximize water usage.
The condition here is very hot, but that's how we are trying to make things work out. This simply, we are using a mechanism which we call organic agriculture that consists of farm-made manure that is supporting our farm to hold that water during the time water is lost.
Farmers are also taking advantage of the season of flooding that occurs in the area. Floods are often seen as destructive, but in Kenya's Turkana County, farmers are making better use of the water. Flood water is rich with nutrients and allows farmers to grow high-yield crops.
The reason my garden looks green is because I have a water pump that I use to pump flood water and water from the Takwel River to water my garden because the climate here is unfavorable and requires a lot of water.
These practices have helped many move beyond subsistence farming. They are able to generate income from excess crops that they sell. And farming communities are looking to ways to get even bigger harvests.
If we could get some people to help us with seeds and equipment that we can use to better our farming, it would go a long way to make things better for us.
Through this simple process, farmers have been able to reduce the potentially negative impacts of both floods and droughts. The ash conditions in Turkana County serve as a strong warning of what is to come unless farmers adapt farming techniques to prevent land degradation. Daniel Arap Moy, CGTN, Lodwar, Kenya.
Police say 2 people have been killed and another injured during violent protests in the United States state of Wisconsin. Videos posted online show chaotic scenes as people run and scream amid a volley of gunfire. Police are investigating whether the shooting erupted after demonstrators fought with a group of men carrying weapons. Crowds chased a man running down the street with a rifle. A pursuer kicked at him after he fell and another tried to grab his weapon. One person seemed to be shot at close range before falling to the ground. Another video showed a man who appeared to be shot in the head with people trying to help him. Kenosha has been the scene of violent protests since a black man was shot multiple times in the back by the police this weekend. Dan Williams has more.
It was an emotional day in Kenosha as Jacob Blake's family attended a news conference here just outside the courthouse. They had come from the hospital to give thanks to their supporters and well-wishers following the shooting on Sunday that saw police officers shoot Blake several times in the back. The message from the family was clear: they want justice. His father, Jacob Blake Sr., was clearly overcome with emotion.
They shot my son 7 times. 7 times. Like he didn't matter. But my son matters.
Blake's mother, Julia Jackson, also spoke. She too called for justice, but she also had this message for protesters.
As I was riding through here, through the city, I noticed a lot of damage. It doesn't reflect my son or my family. If Jacob knew what was going on as far as that goes, the violence and the destruction, he would be very unpleased.
Blake remains hospitalised and in a serious condition. Attorney Ben Crump says Blake is paralysed and still faces a significant fight for his life.
The medical diagnosis right now is that he is paralyzed. And because those bullets severed his spinal cord and shattered some of his vertebrae, it is going to take a miracle for Jacob Blake Jr. to ever walk again.
Authorities say the investigation is still ongoing. 2 officers have been placed on administrative leave. Dan Williams for CGTN, Kenosha, Wisconsin.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Nigeria's frontline workers risk their lives in their call of duty. And China's First Lady donates medical equipment to Côte d'Ivoire.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca. Among the crowds in Cairo.
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile. Along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Vikash Purma is a scuba diving instructor on the island of Mauritius.
When you go underwater, you are living the actual moment. Because when you're down there, you're not in contact with whatever trouble you've got, whatever is there.
He is a popular teacher with locals, as well as with international visitors. For Vikash, the underwater world is a place where everyone is equal. Yet he finds that society itself is not always perfect.
No one is better than A, B, or C.
I don't say that one. I say that's the reality.
And let's head to Nigeria, where there's concerns as frontline workers continue their jobs amid the coronavirus pandemic. From security guards to cleaners to sales attendants, their constant interface with people puts them at risk of contracting COVID-19. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reports.
This pharmacy in Nigeria's capital has been in operation for nearly a decade. Among its staff of about 45 people, many of them interact daily with customers. Many businesses like this one have measures in place to protect their workers from the coronavirus.
We limited the number of shifts we had. We actually looked at it and make it more flexible. More staff have access to off days as compared to the previous before the COVID period. So they had access to off, and their shift is flexible, and not like before that you have to come to work daily.
We not only took care of their transportation, their movement, we also took care of their feeding, but then there was no place to eat. If a person have to work for 6-7 hours, you have to provide food for the person. You have to provide a lot of comfort for the person, so that in the risk of coming to work with you, the person will be satisfied, happy while going home. And making sure that in as much as he's coming to work for you, he's going back healthy.
There's hand sanitizer, there's face mask. They provide everything we needed for us to be safe. Our office took proper measure. They keep distance. Customer have to keep distance. We have to attend to one customer before we tell the other person to come in.
But what these frontline workers don't have is health insurance cover.
In the country at the moment, the number of employers that actually provide health insurance for their companies are very low, extremely low. It's very, very important because these people end up getting sick while doing their job. Apart from COVID-19, it is a very good, important thing to make available for all your workers.
Despite the risks involved, many workers remain resolute in hanging on to their jobs. Nigeria's current unemployment rate stands at 27.1%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. And there's been massive job losses and pay cuts since the pandemic hit. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Chinese First Lady Peng Liyuan has donated medical equipment to Côte d'Ivoire. The supplies are aimed at helping women and children fight COVID-19. The donation has been received by representatives of the Ivorian First Lady Dominique Ouattara in Abidjan. CGTN's Wanja Mungai told the story.
It is yet another donation from China. It aims at helping Africans fight COVID-19. Representatives of Côte d'Ivoire's First Lady Dominique Ouattara receive over 100 thermometers and 18,000 surgical masks.
I would like to thank the First Lady of China for giving us this important batch of medical devices. This donation will be used to help people who do not have the means to better protect themselves from the virus. It is true that we need a lot of medical equipment, and this donation is very welcome.
Authorities say the contribution to women will go a long way in flattening the curve in the West African nation.
This batch of medical equipment, which constitutes an important contribution to the efforts that the First Lady of China is constantly deploying, comes to the relief of women, children and teenagers of Côte d'Ivoire within the framework of the fight that we all lead against the pandemic of COVID-19.
The Organization of African First Ladies for Development appealed to Peng Liyuan to assist Africa's vulnerable during the pandemic.
After receiving the request from Mrs. Sassou Nguesso, Mrs. Peng Liyuan responded favorably within a short period of time. The First Lady said the Chinese government would make donations to 53 African countries that have diplomatic relations with China. I hope this donation will help women, children and teenagers better cope with the pandemic.
China has been making contributions towards the fight against COVID-19 across the continent. China's ambassador says the country is committed to prioritize Africa once the vaccine is developed. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
To South Africa now, where engineers have developed a 3D printed ventilator that can assist multiple COVID-19 patients at once. The ventilator is portable and allows for off-grid operations for up to 1.5 hours. Here's CGTN's Yolisan Jamela with more on that story.
South Africans continue to innovate new products to curb the spread of the coronavirus, and the University of Johannesburg is at the forefront in terms of those innovations to fight this coronavirus. In April, the Institution of Higher Learning created open-source cheap ventilators to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic. During the same month, UJ developed 3D printed surgical face shields in an effort to meet the rapidly growing need for personal protective equipment for healthcare workers. And now, the university has developed 3D ventilators. The ventilators have a customizable base plate to treat multiple patients. Named Ora Imprimere, meaning a breeze of air provided by printing. The ventilators have a battery system that will ensure normal functioning, whilst the demand for electricity currently exceeds the available supply here in South Africa.
Well, what we did is that the base plate was 3D printed using a material called PLA. And the 3D printer concept is basically coming from the Lego design concept. And from, with the Lego design, what you can have is that you can have multiple components that will be able to put in a second additional ambu bag. South Africa has a problem of power outages and what is called blackouts. So one of our undergrad students, Mr. Malcolm Lowe, suggested that we use lithium-ion batteries as part of this design. So what we did there is to superimpose lithium-ion batteries into the design so that it can last for 1.5 hours without the need of an electrical grid connection.
An ambu bag is a handheld device commonly used to provide positive pressure ventilation to patients who are not breathing or not breathing adequately.
The ambu bag is centered with these locks, and these locks make sure that the ambu bag does not move and always keep its center. They can be adjusted to any bag size.
The team also ensured that there is a solar mobile lab to enable continual use of the devices.
The ventilator we designed uses DC power source, but we have a converter unit that can convert from AC to DC. But the interesting thing about our project is just beside the ventilator, we also have a solar mobile lab that can ensure that once the battery runs out, the solar powered system can continuously provide electricity to the ventilator. So you can have a 24 hours a day energy from the solar system based on the trailer that is attached to it. Yeah.
The UJ engineering team has also made the blueprint available to the public in order to develop the design further. Yulisan Jamila for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
There are fears that millions around the world could be pushed into a life of hunger and desperation as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a toll on many countries. In Kenya, the pandemic has already strained the food production and distribution system. And as CGTN's Enoch Esikolia reports, vulnerable groups say they fear succumbing to hunger even before COVID-19 hits them.
This is Mathare area, an informal settlement in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Residents here face numerous challenges ranging from water shortage to poor sanitation and shelter. But the coronavirus pandemic is now proving to be a new challenge altogether.
With the coronavirus spreading through communities in Kenya, the East African country has been preparing for the worst: mass infections and economic meltdown. But in the poor neighborhood of Mathare, the effects are already home. Daily curfews, restrictions, and global lockdowns have left many informal workers from here without income. Over 500,000 people live in Mathare. It's one of the most densely populated places in the region.
Hapa ndio bedroom yangu, kitanda yangu pale nalalia.
This is my bedroom. I sleep here with my youngest child. My other children sleep on the floor.
Hapa kuna watoto wengine wanalala hapa chini.
Another one on the chair. This side is my kitchen.
Hapa ndio chicken yangu pale napikia.
The 25-year-old has 5 children to feed, a responsibility that solely rests on her shoulders. Her husband left a few months ago, never to return. She says her challenge has been feeding her children after she lost her job. She used to work in a salon.
Let me say, I have water, but it is hard to get something to eat.
The World Food Programme says that about 20% of Africa's population remains malnourished. In Mathare slums, people have to make a choice between seeking food and risking infection. As they struggle to make ends meet, many here risk contracting the highly infectious virus. There is fear that the virus could spread rapidly in Mathare and many other informal settlements. But the biggest fear is that hunger could affect many more. It's a story of how one crisis is fueling another. Children's homes are on the edge. Getting donations has been hampered given restrictions in place. Helen Oduor, a social worker at the Good Samaritan Children Home, says the threat of hunger remains real.
We have to add more food in our store if we don't know the timeline when the pandemic will end.
This orphanage was hit so hard that drastic decision had to be taken.
We did some cuts on the children that we had to give some to the guardians, and now the number that is here is not very big, that much. So the food stuff that is still in the store is going maybe to last us within 4-5 months.
When many schools shut their doors, children's homes could not afford to do that. That is because they are the only homes most children here know of. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
In Ghana, the coronavirus pandemic has not only impacted the economy, but also traditional festivals like the Homowo. The Ga people hold the ceremony annually in commemoration of a devastating drought that plagued the country years back. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai tells us more.
Phyllis Aite is celebrating the Homowo festival, but not in the usual way. The restrictions placed on the celebration due to the coronavirus pandemic means it's much more low-key than last year.
I feel very long ago.
We didn't perform the traditional rites, but we had a peaceful celebration of the festival. Hopefully next year, when the pandemic is over, we can celebrate it better.
It's okay, COVID could happen.
Homowo is a colorful festival celebrated by the Ga ethnic group in Ghana. It usually includes many rituals performed by the chief of the Ga people and his elders to call for blessings from their ancestors. Despite the celebration of the Homowo festival, the streets in this town are empty. Residents are not allowed to hold carnivals to avoid the spread of COVID-19. And so many people here have been robbed of the chance to enjoy their cultural heritage.
This year's celebration is not exciting. We can't go around the community in groups singing and dancing like we've always done in the past. We just have to stay at home and eat the special meal usually prepared on this occasion.
This year's Homowo celebration will go down in history as one that was without the usual splash. Phyllis hopes the pandemic goes away soon so that next year she can enjoy the festival that allows her to embrace her cultural identity. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, let's now go to Rama Nyang for a look at the day's business news. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. Nigeria's Akinwumi Adesina is poised for second term as president of the African Development Bank as delegates meet virtually for the first time in the bank's history. And the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization is touring historical sites in Egypt.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Welcome back. Now, the 2020 annual meetings of the African Development Bank are being held virtually for the first time in the bank's 56-year history. Representatives of the 54 African states that are members of the bank and the 27 non-African states who are also members of the institution are attending the virtual meetings between the 26th and the 27th of August. The COVID-19 impact on African economies and the election of a bank president are right at the top of the agenda. But there's only one candidate for that particular post, and that is the incumbent, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina of Nigeria. According to a recent report by Bloomberg, Nigeria has doubled its voting rights in the bank to just under 17%, making it the lender's largest shareholder by far. The move is set to help Adesina keep the post for another 5-year term.
With the pandemic, Africa has lost over a decade of economic growth. Africa's recovery will be long and difficult. Now we must help Africa to build and to build back boldly, but smartly, paying greater attention to quality growth, health, climate, and environment. Yet, even in these changing times, the board of directors of the African Development Bank Group pulled together to support Africa. The bank launched a $10 billion COVID-19 response facility to support African countries. We launched a $3 billion social bond on the global market, the largest US dollar denominated social bond ever in world history.
Onto the World Tourism Organization now. The Secretary General of that organization is on a tour of Egypt's pyramids in Giza and the new Grand Egyptian Museum. Now, the trip by Zuba Pololikashvili is the first that he's carrying out outside Europe since the pandemic began. His tour comes as Egypt readies itself to receive more international tourists. The country is trying to jumpstart the tourism sector after suffering a major blow in this pandemic. The WTO aims to offer support and cooperation, as well as assess the extent to which Egypt is ready to receive even more international visitors. This visit by the WTO Secretary General will also serve as a sort of symbolic stimulant to the industry. Egypt's tourism sector is a vital source of foreign currency income. It accounts for roughly 15% of Egypt's GDP. Also in West Africa, Nigeria is facing a very severe shortage of foreign currency in the wake of the collapse of the price of its main export, that's crude oil. The country's long-held multiple exchange rates and capital controls have just compounded the problem as firms and foreign investors find it increasingly difficult to buy US dollars with ease or even just move capital out of the country. As CGTN's Deji Badmos now reports, there are growing fears that this FX shortage could limit the recovery of Africa's largest oil producer.
The last time Nigeria experienced the current forex liquidity shortage was in 2016, when the country slipped into recession. With another recession looming, the problem has resurfaced, and the course is not uniquely different from the last time. A fall in oil price, the country's main source of forex earnings, and a drop in remittances flow as a result of global disruptions from the COVID-19 pandemic have both combined to hurt the country's forex revenue. Even foreign investments too have been greatly impacted.
The focus in Nigeria, unfortunately, has been with the portfolio investors. And they come in and out, and when the conditions are good, they're in. When the conditions are bad, they're out. But FDI is more calculated, is more focused on the long-term economic growth and development. And clearly, Nigeria is probably doing under $2 billion a year in FDIs.
Nigeria's capital market has been badly hit as a result of the situation, as foreign portfolio investors bid for the gates, seeking alternative markets.
For most of the foreign investors bought the FMDQ OTC futures contract, FX futures contract rather, and it's a Naira non-deliverable forward that they get Naira and they still have to source for their dollars. So what we've been seeing now is that for most of the foreign investors, despite the assurances from the CBN, for most of them have not been able to repatriate their proceeds.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has so far carried out 2 rounds of devaluation as part of its strategy to ease the pressure on the local currency and bring about a single exchange rate for the country. It's also added some new items on its list of items banned from accessing forex through the official market. Even banks too have had to ration the sale of forex and review spending limits of customers. But the scarcity still persists, and some analysts say the situation could go on for the next 18 months if oil prices continue to remain low.
So at the point when oil prices are over $100 a barrel, then you should see the Naira appreciate against the dollar. And at a time when oil prices are low, you should see the Naira devalued. But basically, because you have a static exchange rate regime, we've suffered devaluation and we're not seeing that revaluation.
We need to ensure that our foreign exchange policy incentivizes investment, allows or encourages inflow of foreign capital and foreign direct investment. We need to remove the current level of uncertainty around a lot of policy issues.
The National Bureau of Statistics here has just released the GDP figures of the country for the second quarter. Not surprisingly, the economy contracted by 6%. Even though oil continues to account for around 9% of the entire GDP, fact is, if prices do not go up, the entire economy will continue to feel the shock. And of course, the forex challenge will continue to bite harder. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
On to South Africa now, where the cell phone maker Mobicel has set up a new assembly plant in the country. The facility is located in Johannesburg. It will allow the firm to grow its market share in Africa's most industrialized economy. Here's CGTN's Sumitra Naidu with this report.
Mobicel is not only investing in its growth and expansion, it also wants to create much-needed employment in South Africa. This new state-of-the-art end-to-end facility will focus on employing young black women.
So at the time of the COVID hitting, we started to notice even more women were really impacted by this. In the tech and the manufacturing industry, just in general, there's not much women employment. And we all understand that the challenges that our ladies face in the job market. We saw this as the perfect opportunity to actually address this. It was a time when a lot of business was closing down. It was a lot of people were losing jobs, but we wanted to actually flip the whole script on its head and go for something more special.
Young women are put through an extensive 3-week training and induction program. Their only requirement is a matric certificate.
So it's not about us looking at a CV and saying, this candidate ticks the boxes, they are now suitable, let's hire. There's so many women out here in South Africa that are passionate and ambitious, but they need this opportunity. Because we are able to train, because we are able to bring them in and equip them with all the skills, we saw this as a great opportunity to make a hard call and say that our new assembly plant is going to be run fully by a woman and black South African women.
For these ladies, it's not only a job, it's an opportunity to acquire skills that can empower them for the future.
When I came here, you're inexperienced, like you have no idea what you're going to do. And this opens a door for you to be like a qualified technician. And working by a place where it's permanently, that's a blessing. Because a lot of girls my age, that's struggling to get a job because you just matriculated and you don't have experience.
This is, a great opportunity whereby, now I don't even have to ask. Now I can help myself out if I could say that, I came here as everybody, but when time went by, I got promoted and, so I believe that I can still grow within this. This is just not opportunity. I feel like we're still going to grow.
Mobicel has already hired and trained 65 ladies in this assembly plant. The company is planning on employing an additional 50 women over the next few months. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Right, then we'll leave there for the time being. I'll be back at the top of the hour, though. We'll be looking at Zimbabwe in a bit more detail. Authorities over there grappling the worsening economic crisis because the country is essentially still locked out of international credit markets, despite pleas by the government to open the taps amidst the crisis the country is facing. So what happens next? We'll have some answers for you at the top of the hour. See you then. For now, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news, views and analysis for you here in the program. Here's what's ahead. We look at how a South African artist is using his work to capture joy and movement.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
South African artist Sithole Lebogang has a solo show inspired by the coronavirus pandemic. Although the pandemic has triggered fear and anxiety in many people, the artist captures joy and movement in his work. Here's CGTN's Julisan Jamela with more.
Sithole Lebogang is predominantly known for his printmaking. He, however, also works in other mediums. Those include soft pastel, acrylics and charcoal. In his printmaking, Lebogang combines dry point with monoprint to create unique prints. Lebogang has for the past 4 to 5 years been exploring his roots, who he is becoming, whilst observing others and capturing moments. A central thread that runs through his life story is the significance and spiritual presence of his grandparents as moral mentors represented in different ways. His subject matter is particularly inspired by his grandfather, who was a musician.
This is my story. I was born on the same day when my grandfather passed away. So on that day when I was born, I was then named after him. So he was an artist. He was a jazz artist. So as I grew up, most of the things that I do in life are the things that he did in life. So to me, this thing of being an artist, it's more like there's a spirit within me, you know, that it's working through me.
Lebohang's use of bright colors has characterized his work and defined his style as a printmaker. He has managed to capture joy and movement in his art in a manner which is unique to his work. His current solo exhibition here at Candice Berman Gallery is known as Imvela Kancane, meaning that which is rare.
Basically, the show, it's inspired by the pandemic situation. Yeah, I'm basically talking about senses of touch, the economical and the migration, you know, since I live in Joburg. My subject matter is about rural settlement, but mostly I talk more about my growth. When I put it in a statement form, I normally say environment, nothing, heredity, anything, you know, because I believe that for every country, for every child, for every race that a child is born into, the environment determines the development of that baby. So I'm basically talking about my childhood, mainly in my work.
There's a sense of happiness and nostalgia which carries through the various subjects of Lebohang's work. Yuli Sanjamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
And in Kenya, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced comedians to adapt. Ashtatal has more on how a group of comedians are taking their jokes online.
COVID-19 means Kenyan comedians can't count on crowds to laugh at their jokes. Instead, they've had to move their routines online.
We're using webcams and just like a free software. Yeah, everything goes straight into the software, and the show goes on. The cameras are not. We don't have cameramen. We only have someone controlling the software. And the cameras are there and microphones.
The Quarantine Comedy Club has been up and running for 9 weeks. Instead of collecting ticket sales, the comedians asked viewers to send donations.
Here we are, 9 weeks later, performing without an audience, and guys are enjoying the show, guys are loving it, and we are grateful for all the support that guys are giving us.
While COVID-19 has taken away their crowds, the comedians are using this time to innovate.
Art develops, pushes us to the next level of culture. Right now, COVID is here. This is a new culture. This culture will never die. COVID will die, but whatever COVID came with is not going to die. If you are on Facebook, you're going to remain there as an artist. You'll be there for quite a long time.
COVID-19 has changed many things, but one thing is certain. The Quarantine Comedy Club will continue to bring the laughs. Astatal, CGTN.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. Lionel Messi's possible Barcelona exit sparks a football transfer frenzy in Europe.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks,